How does a small, persecuted community, born in the deserts of 7th century Arabia, become one of the most transformative empires in history and do it in just a few decades? Today, we're diving into the incredible rise of Islam, a story of survival, strategy, and explosive change that literally redrew the map of the world.
It's a huge question, and the answer doesn't start with grand armies on a battlefield. Not at first, anyway. It all begins with a desperate struggle for survival in a very hostile city, Mecca.
In the very beginning, survival was absolutely not guaranteed. The early Muslims weren't just a small group with a new idea. They were up against a powerful and organized opposition that could have easily stamped them out before they even got started.
So why was the opposition so fierce? Well, for the powerful leaders of Makkah, the Mushriklar, this new monotheistic faith wasn't just some theological debate. No, it was a direct threat to their entire way of life, their social status, and maybe most importantly, their economy, which was built around pilgrimages to the city's many shrines.
The pressure just kept mounting until it became totally unbearable, forcing a major strategic pivot. A small group first found refuge in Abyssinia, but then a real opportunity came up. Leaders from the nearby city of Medina actually offered the community a safe haven. This all led to the Hijra in 622, the migration to Medina. And this wasn't just an escape, it was the move that allowed a persecuted community to finally become a state.
Okay, so now they're in Medina, and everything changes. This marks a massive shift. The community isn't just a religious group fighting to survive anymore. Now they're laying the actual groundwork for a new society, and that comes with a whole new set of challenges.
One of the very first things they did was create the Medina Charter. You can really think of this as a kind of constitution, a blueprint for their new society. It was a pretty remarkable document for its time, designed to unite all the different groups in the city, Muslims, Jews, and others, under a common system of law and defense.
Right, but having a blueprint for a state is one thing. Actually defending it, that's something else entirely. Security was a huge issue, and the next few years were defined by a series of make-or-break conflicts that would decide if this whole new project would survive or just be crushed. And those early years were a total nail-biter. The victory at Badr was this incredible shot in the arm, proof they could actually stand up to the powerful Meccans. But then, just a year later, the defeat at Uhud was a brutal reality check. It all came to a head at the Battle of the Trench, where a final Meccan siege of Medina failed, and that really turned the tide of the war for good.
But here's where it gets really interesting. The next big breakthrough didn't happen on the battlefield at all. It happened at the negotiating table. The Treaty of Hudaybiyah in 628 was a masterclass in diplomacy that, even though it looked like a compromise, set the stage for total victory.
This treaty was a complete game changer. By signing it, the Meccans officially recognized the Muslim state as an equal power for the first time. That diplomatic win gave them the stability they needed to secure trade routes, and, get this, just 2 years later, it led to the almost completely bloodless conquest of their old home, Mecca.
So, with Arabia now pretty much unified under his leadership, the Prophet delivered his final sermon. It was this powerful vision for the future, declaring an end to all the old tribal feuds and vendettas of the pre-Islamic era, what he called the Age of Ignorance. It was basically a new social and ethical foundation for the community, delivered right before his death that same year.
But then, his death presents this profound new challenge. Who's going to lead the state that he built? This question of succession was absolutely critical, and the answer they came up with would shape the destiny of the faith for centuries.
The community's solution was to create a new role, the Caliph, or Khalife in Arabic, which literally means successor. This person would take on the political, military, and legal leadership, but and this is super important, they would not inherit the prophetic mission. That had ended.
The first 4 men to hold this job are known as the rightly guided caliphs, and their time in charge is going to oversee an era of, both unprecedented expansion and, as we're about to see, some deep and pretty unexpected internal conflict.
Seriously, the next 3 decades are just a whirlwind. The Islamic State is going to explode across the map, conquering ancient empires. But at the exact same time, this incredible period of growth is also when the first fractures, the first deep cracks begin to appear inside the community itself.
The scale of this expansion is just hard to wrap your head around. First, Abu Bakr puts down rebellions to unite Arabia and orders the Quran to be compiled into a single book. Then, under his successor Umar, the expansion goes into hyperdrive. Armies just sweep out of the peninsula, conquering the heartlands of the Byzantine and Sasanian empires in about a decade. Uthman keeps it going, even building a navy to push into the Mediterranean.
But then, this era of conquest comes to a screeching halt. The assassination of the third caliph, Uthman, unleashes all these political tensions that had been simmering under the surface. And under the fourth caliph, Ali, the state plunges into its very first civil wars, pitting Muslim against Muslim and bringing that massive expansion to a dead stop.
This chaotic period ends with the martyrdom of Ali in 661. His death doesn't just close the book on the era of the first four caliphs, it also solidifies the first major split within Islam, a division rooted in that fundamental question of who had the right to lead, which would eventually give rise to the Sunni and Shia traditions we see today.
So we're left with this really powerful question. The journey from a persecuted minority to a world empire was astonishingly fast. But the switch from external conquest to internal conflict was just as swift. It makes you wonder, are these just the inevitable growing pains of any new power? Is this a pattern that just echoes again and again throughout history?